All right, we are all the way down to the letter Z. The letter Z starts out the way most other letters start out in the Chancery alphabet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to hold my pen in the number 4 position. That is a little bit flatter than normal, and draw this nice curve. Starts out straight at the top, then comes down all the way to about 7, 8 o'clock on a clock face. Now, I may need to extend this top line just a little bit more. And again, it's easier to do it now than it was to do it when I was doing the curve. Do the curve, then extend this just a little bit so that there's room for this S curve. It's in the letter Z, but it's an S curve. You got that, right? A very gentle S curve from here down to the baseline. Do you see that? That's what I call an S curve. An S curve can go in either direction. This one starts this way and then comes down. And then the very bottom curve is also an S curve. This way and kicking up at the end quite a bit. Let me give you an option there at the end. You could draw a complete hook there at the end. Your call, depending on the weight of the line that you're writing. Let me do that letter again. So starting with my pencil in a number 4 position, a little bit more horizontal, draw that curve, then back up to the top. I want to extend that line. I want to do it without making any blips or blumps or warbles right there, right? So I'm going to match up perfectly. I'm going to draw the line to the right so that you can see it. We'd have a train wreck if we didn't do that. It would crash into that curve. And then I'm going to do this S curve like this. There we go. And then another S curve at the bottom. And doing a complete hook or flag or foot there at the bottom. There, the capital letter Z. Let me do a lowercase z. As you can imagine, a little bit simpler. One actually slight S curve. And this curve now is a straight curve, a straight stroke. It's not an S curve. We don't have room to fit an S curve in the lowercase z. There's not enough space for it. And then this, again, a gentle S curve. You got it? So, another word for the S curve is a double or recurve curve, and then a straight stroke, straight curve, that is, and then another S curve at the bottom, kicking up at the end. I didn't do that there. There we go. Now, what happens if you want to connect this letter to the one next to it? Very simple. You can probably tell, can't you? This is ready to go right there to whatever comes after it. Let's say the letter A. So there's your connector. Likewise, what if you want to, if your Z is the last letter in a line of type? Very simple. And in this case, I would say instead of just adding some flourish to the end of that stroke, make the entire stroke part of a flourish. Do you see the difference? I'm not just adding something. That would be okay, but this is much more organic and in keeping with the shape of the letter Z. Okay, now let's move on to the felt tip marker. That's a tool that can go with you anywhere and accomplish all kinds of things. It's not quite as sharp as a real calligraphy pen, so doesn't make the same degree of beauty in its line, but it's great for transportation, and if you have to do something like 200 wedding invitations, then sure, you might want to use a calligraphy pen. Let me do that capital S again. Straight, curve, extend that top bar a little bit, S curve, and then another S curve or double recurve, and a hook at the bottom. Good enough. Now a lowercase z, going to come over here to an empty space on the paper. Little hook, S curve, straight curve now, and an S curve at the bottom, kicking up at the end. Got it? Let's go right straight ahead to the dip pen, our best friend and sometimes our worst enemy. The pen that does all kinds of things, chatters on the paper, fails to write sometimes, dumps out ink sometimes, Splatters on the... Not to you. I'm talking about what happens to me. None of this will happen to you, I'm sure. Capital Z. Let me come down to a clean spot on the paper. Down here. Straight. Then a curve. Down to about 7, 8 o'clock. Then I come back up here and extend that top straight line a little bit so that I have room for the main body of the Z with that S curve. Pick up. And another S curve down here, coming around to a final hook. And that hook, I managed to push the pen uphill. Do you see? If you're working on a kind of paper that wouldn't let you do that, then you would stop here and pull that curve down, which is, again, technically the more proper way to do it. Can I do that letter again? Because sometimes in the course of my talking, I'm not paying much attention. Let me do that and get it, just clean it up just a little bit. There we go. I like that better. Then the main body of the Z is a very gracious S curve. Lift up. Do the next stroke. And let me do this curve the right way. There we go. There. I'll stand by that Z. Now, again, the lowercase. The simple initial hook. Very shallow S curve, one straight curve here, and then a final S curve kicking up at the end. You can do that one more time. Straight down, and then an S curve, and making my pen stand on its hind legs to get that last stroke. And of course, you can go as high as you want there just for a final decoration. And if you've been going with me, you're through the entire alphabet. Give yourself a congratulations. Why don't you calligraphy yourself a little certificate and say, I, so-and-so, have successfully completed Calligraphy Corner alphabet. How about that? You ought to do that right now. Make a certificate. Thanks for following me. We still have numbers to do, unless you're not going in the same order as I am. We're going to do numbers and punctuation. Hang in there. You're going to be a calligrapher before you know it.